All right. Looks like we got a small crowd today. I know there's a couple of events and conferences going on, so I'm just going to get started, and I'll, like I usually do, share the recording with everyone if they want to catch up. Just a couple of bigger things this month to provide updates on, but I'm just going to follow the normal agenda protocol. If anybody has stuff to add as we go along, please feel free to jump in. Um, In terms of website usage and help desk support, it's been pretty quiet, which again follows the normal trend on an annual basis. Really, no big technical issues that I'm aware of. There may be stuff going on out there, but I haven't um, heard about it. Uh, we do still have periodic outages coming in. But it seems manageable at this point. Uh, Moving on to updates with our weather station vendors, a lot of progress has been made with Onset. Um, they have committed to going to at least, I think it's 3 trade shows after the new year. One will be the Ohio Produce Network. I think they're planning on coming to New York for the New York Growers Expo, and then there's a third one I can't think of offhand. But they are very much on board with working with the NEWA platform. They have developed their own pamphlet using some of the basic information, and so they'll use that to hand it out at these expos, and they're also customizing some of their display to promote the fact that they're going to be working with NEWA in the short term. In terms of things going on technology-wise, we are still making good progress. We've successfully established the data sharing protocol, and there's probably some things behind the scenes. Keith, if you want to say anything on our end, just in terms of how that data will come in to our own databases, but everything I see shows that we're on track, and the company's very supportive. Other developments with RainWise, I think I mentioned that they were going to hire some additional support staff for their call center. I think they've done that, so there's still probably things they need to do on their end with training those folks. And as I learn more about the changes they're making, I will certainly let you know. Looking at website rebuild topics, we are waiting for a final revision from Cornell Information Technology Custom Development Group. But I expect that, I'm hoping today, and then Julie just needs to sign that, and we're on our way. The other half of that is Keith and I and Bill Noon and Alex Simferos have had some really good conversations about the specifics of what NRCC is going to take the lead on developing and how we can use resources with this other internal Cornell group, specifically in the area of um, design and user experience, and how we can really create some synergy there to get this project done um, on time. The other thing I want to mention is that part of the USDA grant that Julie and Jennifer and our PIs on includes some redevelopment or some new approaches to managing data quality control. Keith and I spoke briefly about this, and I think what we'd like to do, this is going to be something that probably has usefulness for state coordinators, is set up a webinar, again, that we can record and use as a resource moving into the future, but Keith would take the lead on that. So what I'll probably do after this meeting is just send out an email so that folks who are not on this conference call can get up to speed. I'll send a doodle poll along with that, maybe with a couple of different time frames this winter. I know there's some really busy periods with conferences, so I'll take a look at that. But if we can nail down one date and time, we'll get that initiated, because I think that's a really big piece of our data quality control on that grant. The thing I really wanted to talk about, I've been thinking about it because it has been a little bit slower in terms of managing weather stations and new location requests, is our current workflow for onboarding new stations. Just by default, when I came on board, we have a system in place where someone would fill out a paper form and then either scan it or send a PDF to us here at NEWA, and we would enter it, or one of you state coordinators would follow a similar process outside of New York. I did modify things a little bit this past winter in an effort to, I hope, streamline things a little bit. But the more I think about it, the more I'm wondering if we could really dramatically improve the process further by actually just directing station, I'm going to call them station operators at this point. So some folks buy a station outright, some folks work with one of these state coordinators to set them up. But my thought is we could just, once a station is linked either to Rainwise or Onset, provide the URL to this form here. So this is for New York, but I think everybody has a link for their respective states. But basically, right now, what would happen is the person who sets up the station, or you, the state coordinator, would fill this out, and then sometimes that's step one. Sometimes this online form would be filled out directly. But so my thought is, why could we just send everybody to a form like this? And I am sharing my screen, so if you can't see it, let me know. Have them just go ahead and directly fill it out, but when they hit the submit button, a couple of things different might happen. So one would be that I or somebody here on staff we would get this directly before you had to interact with it as a state coordinator. I think we could pretty efficiently double check all the information, make sure we have those critical pieces like the equipment identifier or whatnot. And then if there was any additional follow-up, just shoot an email to whoever filled out the form very quickly. Assuming everything was good to go at that point, I'm thinking it would be really easy to just automatically generate an email to you. So Mary, if someone in Connecticut, for example, bought their own station, they could just fill this out directly. We would check everything to make sure it's good to go, and then when we submit it for onboarding, we could just let you know at that point, and we can provide all the contact information and things like that. So I don't know if people have thoughts on that right now, but I'm trying to think about some of the bigger things that I've seen in year one and year two since I started. And it just seems like there's a bit of redundancy in the system, and maybe it's necessary, maybe it's not. If you want to think about it and reply offline, that's fine too. But that's something I'm leaning a little bit in that direction, just in an effort to continue streamlining things. So I wanted to be sure I shared that.
Dan, this is Cheryl.
Yeah.
So I think personally, I haven't been, sort of involved with this as long as some of the others on the call, but I think that makes sense to me.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a deterrent sometimes to folks. I think more often it's a issue of cost for some folks that want to do their own station. But a couple thoughts. I know that on the NEWA site, it says if you're interested in, having a station set up or get a station, you can contact your state coordinator for information.
Right.
So I think that's still a good idea to leave that there. But then after we get notified that there's a station there, and then that station becomes sort of part of our network within our state, if someone owns that station privately, and correct me if I'm wrong, it is their responsibility then to maintain that station, etc. The question that I have then is, if there's a notification that a station is down, because they're the station owner, they only get that, or do we also get that?
You would also get that. And Keith, if you can jump in here, I'm trying to think of examples where we do have privately owned weather stations. Yeah, I think, in New York, I think that's the case a lot of the time. I'd say a vast majority of our stations are privately owned, but I still get notifications if there's an outage. And so what I'm doing is, if we get the 24-hour notification, I don't do anything. But if it's still out after 7 days, I'm reaching out to people, even if I'm not directly responsible, saying, hey, would you like me to share this ticket with Rainwise or something like that? So the way the system is currently set up, yeah, I think the answer is yes, you would still get notifications that those are out.
Yeah, and that's, go ahead, Mary.
I'm not sure if the state coordinators get all of the messages or not, because the owner gets notified after 24 hours, and then 7 days and 14 days and 21 days.
Right. That's right.
I think the state coordinators get all of those, but I'm not 100% sure about some of those intermediate ones.
I get all the notifications for the stations that UConn does not own, but they're all in Connecticut. So yeah, we do get them.
Okay.
We don't currently have any like that in New Hampshire. I would anticipate that at some point, once onset comes on and things like that, there may be more people that are interested in doing that. I've had a couple inquiries, but they've never gone ahead and bought stations and done that. But, I think that's fine the way that that's set up. And I don't think any of us are at a point where it's so onerous and there's so many privately owned stations that we don't want to deal with it. So.
Yeah. And I guess, it's a little bit early in Wisconsin still. They're probably still eating breakfast. But one of the issues I ran into with Wisconsin coming on board is there were some problems with units out of the box. And so Amaya and her associate, Beth Workmath, they didn't complain about it, but based on the volume of back and forth I was seeing or I was involved with, I think that's probably what put this on the radar. And, with the way things can be done now on the internet, I feel like there's pretty big pieces that could be automated. I think we'll leave the way we notify folks in place, but at least with onboarding, I think there's some stuff we can do.
Yeah, in Michigan, our system is quite a bit different because we maintain all of our stations, except for the ones that we have in Wisconsin. There's a technician over there. Yeah. I haven't ever received any notifications from NEWA about one of our stations being down, and I know that there have been situations in the past couple of months where we've had that. But yeah, we have our own tracking system and that kind of thing. And, usually there's an extension agent that's relying heavily on one of the stations. And they, kind of will notice if something's a little wonky or out of whack or not working and let us know that way. So.
We don't set the messages for the Michigan stations, but because we thought that you probably had your own thing like that in place. If you'd like us to do the same tracking for those stations, we could implement that, but we weren't sure if that would be useful or not.
Right. Well, yeah. Let me talk with the people that do the maintenance and see what their feelings are there. I know there's some talk of, they're getting too much information, about the same issue. So let me see if what folks want to do on that before we sign on to that.
Sure, that makes sense. The option is there. So
okay.
If we can support you in that way, absolutely.
Well, yeah, I'm new with this too, so I didn't even know that was an option. So great. Yeah. That's cool.
Okay. All right. So I think I'm going to leave it as something that I'm probably going to do. I'll give it an absolute confirmation or something big changes, I'll just provide that in the December update. But otherwise, that's the direction I'm leaning in right now. Just, you know, if there's something we can do to make things easier for folks, I'm all for that. I think last month I mentioned a whole list of grant proposals that are out that in one way or another would be involving NEWA in different ways. One last thing that has just come up in the past week or so is Jennifer Grant, our director here, and I have been talking about some funds that are available through the Agricultural Experiment Station federal capacity funds, and we're going to put in something to deploy some wireless network systems on a few of our research farms here. It's really, we decided to pursue this because the idea of sensor networks, so we're talking about, okay, if you have a field, you could have like 3 or 4 sensors within that field. There's stuff commercially available like we're seeing with Onset, but even beyond Onset, there's a lot, I'm hearing a lot of talk about this new type of technology and approach to collecting data. So the proposal we're going to put in is to establish some of these networks using Onset platform, because that's what's available, and there's a lot of support, customer support and technical support there, to begin working out logistics of, number one, how do we just manage these data sets. There's built-in stuff with Onset, so right now it's not even directly something that would be tying in with the new interface, but over the period of several years in this project, we build a strong foundation of experience and human capital, call it whatever you want, to understand this, and by the end, maybe have some clear paths about what we could do if this trend of sensor networks continues, and how we could integrate it with NEWA. So it's an easy proposal, relatively speaking, which I'm glad about because I'm about burned out at this point. But if we get that, that's going to be a pretty exciting one, and I just wanted to let everyone know about that, because I think whatever we learn from that project will be useful for everyone involved in our cooperating states, and Keith at NRCC, stuff like that. So really, that's all I have in terms of agenda items, unless anybody has other things that I have not been thinking about the past month. Our next meeting is December 21st, and I do know some people are going to be on holiday, so that's fine. One of the reasons I'm recording these is so that, whether it's field season or, we get near the holidays, it's not quite as critical, and folks aren't going to miss this information. And then 2019, I didn't get any objections to the proposed schedule, so unless otherwise noted, we'll meet at 8:30 on Fridays on each of those dates, except for June 27th. And I think that's because I'm going to be on vacation June 28th, so that wouldn't work very well. But other than that, that's all I've got for November. Anything else? Okay, well, thanks for joining. I'll try to send out my notes a little bit early. I'll just add some stuff based on what we discussed, and I'll try to get it out a little bit earlier than the week before our next meeting, so that people have time to review. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Dan. Good.
Thanks, Dan, and thanks for doing the Bitly stuff for me and that. That's perfect, excellent. Thank you for all your work on that.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
All right, thanks.
All right, talk later. Bye.